Today we're going to knit the Cozy Classic Pullover in size 0 to 3 months. So we cast on 60 stitches for the collar. I'm using the long tail cast on and the slingshot method around my fingers and go under and over and through, and that's just about 60. So we will join in the round and make sure all the stitches are going in the right direction. None of them are twisted. Before I start in the round, I'm going to put a stitch marker to mark the beginning of the round, and then join the stitches, and the pattern calls for 6 rows of 1 by 1 ribbing, which is knit 1, purl 1, and the first row is always a little tight to get all the stitches around the diameter, but we just keep moving them as we go and knit and purl. So we have finished our 6 rounds of ribbing. We can count them. We have the 1 on the needle, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The cast on edge, it doesn't count. So now we're going to do the next step in the pattern, which is you knit a row and place your stitch markers on it, because you're indicating which sections you're going to do your increases on to create the width of the shoulder and the body, with raglan increases on the front of each shoulder and the back of each shoulder. So you separate for the front, the sleeve, the back, and the neck sleeve. So the pattern says you knit 9 stitches, and you're going, this marker is in the center of the back of the neck. So we're going to do 9 for this side. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Go ahead and place your marker. And then the next marker, you knit 1, because we're going to have 1 stitch in between the raglans, or the increases, I should say. So we'll put another stitch marker there, and then we're going to knit 10, and you're going, that's for the sleeve. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And again, you put 1 on, and then you knit a stitch, and you put the next one on, and then you're going to do the front, which is 18 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Let's check, make sure. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. Okay. Get another stitch marker. Knit a stitch. Another stitch marker. And then you do the next sleeve, which is 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Stitch marker, knit 1, and another stitch marker. Should have 9 left for the back, the second half of the back side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I made it. Okay, so now we're back to the beginning of the round, and we're going to do the German short rows. So by doing short rows, you create a little half moon section on the back of the collar, which makes the back of the sweater stick up higher. You can't see it because the hanger's blocking it, but it is higher than the front, and that just is a little more comfortable on a sweater. It's not 100% necessary, but it makes it a little bit more comfortable. So the first step in the pattern says you knit to the first marker, and along with the German short rows, we're going to start our increases for the raglan. So we're knitting to the first marker, 2 techniques all in one. And we increase using this bar in between the stitches. It's called the make one right, and we place it on the front of the needle, and then we come in from the front and we knit it through that loop. And now you have 1 extra stitch, and then you move the marker, knit 1, move the marker, and then you do another increase with the bar, but this time you're going to do a make one left, and you put it on the other side of the needle, and you knit through the back loop, or the back of that stitch. And then we're going to do it 2 more times until we get to the place where we're going to start our German short rows. And this is a make one right. You find that bar, you put it on the front, and you knit through the front of that stitch. You pass the marker over, knit this stitch, pass the other marker over, and make one left. Again, find the bar, put it on the back side, knit through the back loop, and keep going. So now you've done that twice. And then following the pattern, you knit 2 stitches. So this is your increase, this is 1 stitch, 2 stitches. Now we're going to do a German short row, which means you're knitting to the back. You slip a stitch purlwise. You pull this yarn over to create a double stitch, and you again position it on the front of your needle because you're going to purl back. So now we've gotten back to the beginning of the round, and the next part of the directions, step 3, is you purl until you meet your first marker when you're going to increase on the Purl-Side. So we will knit until our first marker. And again, we're going to use the bar in between the stitches. And just like the other side, we're going to put it on the front, and then we're going to purl into the front of the stitch. Move the marker, knit, purl that one, move the marker. And this one is a make one purl, make one left on the purl side. We're gonna place it in the back. And this way you have to go all the way around and purl in the back side. Just a little awkward, but you get the hang of it after a minute or two. Kind of have to get your tip underneath that. Make sure you can pull it through. There you go. And now we're going to do that one more time. We're going to knit or purl up to the next set of markers before we begin the German short rows on this side. Again, here we go again with our increase. Find the bar, put it on the front, and then purl into the front. Slip your marker, purl onto that one, slip your marker, and put this on the back and do that little awkward behind the back. Oops. There we go. And now that you've done it 2 times, you're going to purl 2 and do your German short row on this side. You're going to turn your work, put your yarn in front. Your yarn always has to be in front. Slip your stitch purlwise and pull that yarn to make a double stitch. And this time you're not going to wrap your yarn around to purl. You're just going to make it an awkward little weird looking stitch, and then knit back to the center marker. So you continue doing those German short rows, those 4 steps, 3 more times, and the pattern will give you the number of stitches that you've increased. So you can kind of make sure that you've done that just 4 times total. And then you'll start just knitting and doing your raglan increases. You've finished your German short rows. Like I said, it's just a tiny little moon shape that you're adding to the back of the sweater. And then you just continue to increase all the way down until you get to the bottom of the sleeves, and then you separate for the sleeves. But I will come back and show you after I've done the 3 rest of the German short rows, and then start on our regular raglan increases. So I have finished the German short rows and have increased the stitches from 60 to 92. And that was written in the pattern, so that's always a good way to double check to see that you've done the 4 rows of German short rows. But you can also see how many rows, this is the center back, how many rows we have here compared to how many rows we have in the front of the sweater. And we've created this little moon shape with the German short rows. So now that we've completed that part, we're going to keep knitting on this side in the round, just the knits, and increase our raglan stitches as we come to the markers on every other row. So we do 1 row where we increase before and after the markers, and then we knit a plain row of stockinette, and then we continue the raglans. And then this size, you have your round 24 is the last set of raglan increases, and you should have 156 stitches by the time you're done. So every time you come across your marker, this is the make one right, slip the marker, knit the center stitch, pass the marker, this one goes behind, and then just keep knitting in the round. A lot of times I like to add a stitch marker to my center marker to remind myself which round, if I'm on the increase round or the plain round, as I keep going with these raglans. Or you can write notes or keep a row counter, whatever technique works for you. A lot of times you can also read your yarn and see whether you've made an increase by looking at this stitch. When you pull it, you can only see one little loop there, which means it's a new stitch. And if you've knit on the top of it already, then there'll be an extra stitch. So there's just a few ways to keep track of where you are in your knitting. So I'm going to keep going and do all the raglan increases for my 24 rows. And then I will meet you back here to separate for the sleeves. We have finished the raglan increases. And that means that we've done 24 rounds. We've made 12 raglan increases each time we've hit a stitch marker. So we've increased 8 stitches each time, which means that we have 156 stitches on the needles. Now I have to say, I started out with a 12-inch circular needle because the neck was so small. And then I've now switched to a 16-inch. It's still a little tight with all these stitches that we're going to take off in a minute for the sleeves, but it still might be a little tight. So I do have a 24-inch that I can switch to next if it's just hard to manage all the stitches. But just want to give you a heads up that sometimes you do have to jump around to different size needles to make it more comfortable to knit. Not that you couldn't do it tightly on a smaller circumference, but you know, you want your experience to be as comfortable for you as possible. So now we're on round 25 and we're going to separate for the sleeves. So we're going to knit 22. I've already started 2, so I'm going to knit 20 more. Remove the stitch marker, and that in between stitch is this 22nd stitch. And then we're going to take that one off as well, and we're going to put the stitches for the sleeve on this little cord that makes it easier to knit off of. So it says that you slip 34 stitches for the sleeve. So we do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3, 34. And then it says you cast on 4 stitches for under the sleeve. So we're going to do that with a cable, or this kind. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's a back loop is what they call that. And then we're going to remove these stitch markers, and this should be 34. So we'll do 2, 2, 3, 4, and now we slip these on the next stitch holder. One, 2, 3, 31, 2, 3, 4. And now we cast on the 4 stitches for under the sleeve with the backward loop. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then continue on doing the other half of the back. Do this a little tighter. So there's not such a gap there. There we go. So Now we reach the back center of the neck. And we're going to move our beginning of round stitch so that we are going to have it under the arm instead of in the back. Just so the back looks a little more pristine now. So we're going to knit over to the center of the right underarm, which is over here. We're going to make it so that it's in the center of those 2 cast on stitches. And then we're going to just continue to knit the body, which is just straight stockinette in a spiral, in a circle in the round. For this size is 4 inches from the underarm. So the orange one as my beginning round. And just keep knitting to make the length of the body. And then you do a border edge and 1x1 ribbing. Knit 1, purl 1 for 7 rounds for this pattern, for this size. And cast off or bind off, and you'll be ready to pick up stitches for the sleeves. So I will meet you back here when we are going to be ready for that. Let's see what it looks like. Here's the back, here's the front. Look at how cute is that? Can you imagine a little baby wearing that? Or a stuffed animal or something? So we're at the point where we need to pick up the stitches for the sleeves, and I went ahead and did the one sleeve, but I thought I'd show you on this one. And since we use this hollow cord, it makes it really easy to pick up the stitches and put them back on your needles. I just started using this trick, and it's such a nice way to do it. So I put the needle in the hollow part of the tube and then just keep moving through the stitches to put them all back on the needle. And we have 34 stitches on here, and then if you remember, we added 4 stitches here, so we need to pick those up. And I follow Suzanne Bryant's theory she has videos on YouTube on how to make sure you don't have any gaps in the sleeve when you join. I usually pick up a couple extra on either side of the joins, and then I go around the second time and decrease those stitches. We want to have, by the time we're done picking up and all the extra stitches and closing up the gaps, we want 38 stitches on the needles. And then we'll knit 10 rows for this size, and we'll decrease 2 on either side of our beginning of the row marker that we'll add. And then we'll do that at row 10, at row 16, 22 and 28, do an extra row, and then do our ribbing and cast off for the cuff. So that's what I have these markers for. I usually put a marker on the first row where I pick up the stitch, and then 10, and then 16, 22, and then 28, and then the cuff. So we'll go ahead and start picking up the stitches. And I always have to remind myself that the stitches are a V. So here are 2 V's, and we'll pick up that one as the first one. And then here's the second one, and I pick up 2 legs to get a really sturdy connection there. And then I'll pick up probably right here as the extra to close up, and then I will do this gap here as it pulls these stitches away. And then I will do magic loop because the diameter of this sleeve is so tight. Longest cord coming from the ball, and start knitting. Okay, now it's time to look at these stitches. We'll pick up the 2 on this side and then the 2 extras. So we'll keep going here. pick up the elongated one right here. And then we have that. We put the marker to mark the beginning of our round right there. And then we're going to put this marker to mark the first row here. And now we will actually decrease, because that's the extra stitch, and then we'll decrease. That's the extra stitch, and then we will go around and decrease the other 2 stitches, and then we should have a total of 38 stitches like the pattern says. So we will decrease these 2 and decrease these 2, knit 2 together, and now we've finished that first setup, or went around 2 times actually to set it up for 38 stitches. So keep going. Count your rows with your markers, decrease. The next decrease is at row 10, and you decrease, you knit 2 together on this side of the marker. I always start on this one, decrease to these 2, and then when you come all the way around, decrease these 2. And then again at 10, 16, 22, and then 28. And you do 1 row after 28 before you do the cuff, and the sleeve should be, if you're following the gauge, the sleeve should be finished. So we'll meet you back here and we'll look at the completed pattern. And here is the finished baby sweater. Now we can see this, what the German short rows created with that half moon above the front of the neckline and the 2 sleeves, and I blocked it so all the stitches are now so even and looks great. Congratulations.